Today on LARP Chats, we are talking with Knox. We'll learn about the community of Amtgard through his personal experiences. He has been playing Amtgard for over 2 decades, giving him a unique perspective to the evolution of the Amtgard community. We'll cover more controversial topics today, such as punishments in Amtgard, as well as the old Amtgard tradition of the knighting buffeting line. Let us know in the comments how your experiences line up with or differ from those of Knox's. Also, consider giving this video a like, and if you'd like to see more content like this, subscribe to the channel. I've also relaunched the community Discord. There I host a weekly discussion topic and a monthly movie watch party. Come and join in on the fun, link in the description below. And as always, stay inspired, stay excited, and keep fighting. Now on to the episode. Hello, welcome to LARP Chats. Today we have Knox. We're talking about the community of Amtgard today. They've been playing for 23 years, mostly out of Stormhaven, I believe, which is in Viridian Outlands, which is, what city is that?
Spokane, Washington.
Spokane, Washington. And you've also played in Arizona, you said?
Yeah, so I played in Arizona for about a year. In 2004, I had moved down there to go to college down there, but came back because it was way too hot. And then I went to college again in 2012, went to Pullman, and they didn't have an Amtgard group there, so I spent a couple of years studying and doing my schooling thing, and then after that, came back to Stormhaven. About 2016, I moved over to Westmarch, and I was Kingdom Regent in Westmarch.
And that's the California area, right?
Yeah, that's California. I was Regent for about a year in Kingdom position. Then COVID struck, and I moved back to be closer to my family and stuff like that. I've been in Stormhaven ever since.
Nice. So your first introduction to the community was in Stormhaven.
Yeah.
First of all, how would you explain the Amtgard community to someone who doesn't know what Amtgard is?
The Amtgard community is like, we're a huge family. Granted, with any family, there's going to be disagreements, arguments, some drama that might occur, but at the end of the day, we still come together and we still appreciate one another's presence and just come together, have fun, hang out. We're like a giant dysfunctional family.
So when you started in Stormhaven, how were you welcomed into the Amtgard community?
I first started actually at a Magic Gathering tournament, and they had were talking about it, and I was like, wow, that sounds like fun. I get to beat people with sticks. And so I came over to it was dead of winter, and I came out and I just watched at first because I was like a little bit shy. I'm like, what's going on with this? And then I started to introduce myself, and they were very welcoming, accepting. They taught me how to fight a little bit, which I picked up none of it. Then after that I started bringing in my friends, and the group itself was very welcoming of them as well.
So can you share a story that to you encapsulates the Amtgard community?
At the end of the day, we all come out and we all help each other out what needs to get done around here. There's people that are picking up trash, there's people that are cooking and feeding others and offering free food, free drinks, people going around asking people of age, of course, if they'd like some alcohol, without any desire for any like kickbacks or asking any favors in return. So it's a very giving community. Like I said before, we're just all trying to come together as a group and just have fun with it and to really just enjoy each other's company.
In your experience, how does the community handle conflicts and disagreements?
And I'm going to be like my most blunt, honest opinion about this is that there's a lot of people, from my experience, that don't understand doing the right thing a lot of the time. It's not necessarily an Amtgard thing, it's a human nature thing. And so this isn't denigrating Amtgard at all, but it's more like, well, this just occurs in human psychology, where people have a bias, and so they're immediately going to take the side of their friends, and they struggle to understand where other people are coming from if they're against their friends. And this is going to happen with anyone. And so it's not just Amtgard. But at the end of the day, what we really do need are clear heads that are able to see both sides and try to bring them together and be like, hey, look, you messed up on this part and you messed up on this part. Apologize, come together, shake hands, or whatever you have to do. Because at the end of the day, why does it matter? At the end of the day, does this conflict actually matter? And it's not healthy for the organization for people to be at each other's throats. And at the end of the day, we just all need to come along. Like any dysfunctional family, we all need to come along, get along, and try to resolve things.
So you've been in the game for quite a while, I would say. How has the culture of Amtgard changed throughout the years?
A lot. A lot. Amtgard used to be like the wild, wild west. Very little was regulated. There was a lot of unethical, sketchy things that occurred in the game that would not fly now. It was with the times, I would say, where it was just a lot less regulated and a lot less safe for a lot of people initially. There have been stories of someone getting stabbed over a disagreement over at Clan one year. I think it's called Crown now, right?
Gathering of the Kingdoms.
Gathering of the Kingdoms.
Yeah.
When that was like a very new event, someone ended up getting stabbed.
That's pretty wild.
And that's pretty wild. There was a huge, because they had no rules and no precedents to look at, and there's a huge issue with it, and a bunch of knights ended up dropping their belts because of it. Because that was their recourse. We're just all going to drop our belts. We can't ban the guy because we don't have bans at that time. So we're just going to all drop our belts and say we're not being knights if nothing happens, right? If this guy doesn't get his knighthood removed. Because that was the only recourse that they had. Because at that time, there were no such thing as bans. We didn't even conceptualize the concept of bans.
Yeah.
And this was back in '86, I think.
Yeah, that's quite a while ago.
Yeah.
To be clear, we could have banned them, but we were so new as an organization, we didn't know that what we could or couldn't do.
Exactly. There have been other stories that just were abysmal. Like some people were doing like a wet T-shirt contest over at Clan one year, right? And the head people got word of it, and they shut that down real quick. Because they're like, no, this is not okay. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
And so that was the attitudes of late 80s Amtgard. And then 90s Amtgard rolled around, and it was still feeling a little bit of the residuals of that old guard mentality. But things were changing very, very slightly. And our weapon techs were changing as well. So instead of using the PVC, pipe insulation, duct tape weapons that can chip teeth,
Yeah.
we're slowly gravitating toward the Thunderbolt and the Kite Spar.
Yeah.
And so that was a much safer weapon, much lighter weapon. And so the combat was also changing. And so our entire dynamic has been shifting. And because Amtgard is a microcosm of the general society as a whole, our attitudes started shifting a little bit in terms of being more accepting of like LGBTQ and being more accepting of people that are slightly different than other people, so on and so forth. Now we still had like pockets of groups of companies and individuals that still held on to like the early 90s or late 80s mentality, but Amtgard as a whole started shifting toward being more accepting, more accommodating, and just a better organization. And we started having things like the COC and being able to ban people from events and being able to become a more rigid, more ingrained society where we know what we can do in these situations because now we have precedence for those situations, and we need to be able to keep our members safe because, well, if someone is a danger to our society, we really need to be able to have action to protect our people.
And the COC is Code of Conduct, which was introduced in V8, maybe 10 years.
I think it's 10 years.
More like 10 years. I don't know, time's wild. But especially when you've been doing something for so long.
It feels like it was just yesterday that I was playtesting it. I'm just saying.
Like, I've been a knight for 10 years this year, and it's like, oh my god, I thought it's been like a couple. Well, maybe like 5, but still.
Yeah.
Yeah, time is wonky when you've been doing something for a long time. So would you say things have gotten a lot better then?
Yes, a lot better. We don't have nearly the wild instances that occurred back in the late 80s. But I will say that there are some cases where I think that Amtgard is a little bit too trigger happy in those terms of banning people. Because instead of going one extreme, we're now in the other extreme where there's some people that I don't necessarily agree that they should be banned. When we do it that way, then it's like, well, is there a way to find that middle ground? But like I said earlier about the human condition, it is very difficult for humans to not go to extremes when they've been experiencing really negative situations.
Very similar to a pendulum.
Yeah, it's very similar to a pendulum. So I don't necessarily fault Amtgard for that, but
At least now we have recourse to something that does happen. They can appeal it, where before that may not have been a thing that was available to them.
the appeal process, I will say I'm trying to figure out ways of how to change that appeal process because, like in Viridian Outlands, where I'm from, we don't have a real appeal process. Our appeal process has historically been, oh, you got banned? Let's appeal to the people that banned you. Like, that's not a real appeal process.
They should look into the NPL laws that govern appeals because your state tells you how to do it.
Yeah, so
So
there's some.
it's a complicated issue and each NPL law is different from state to state. So each kingdom is basically regulated to each different state, roughly. So if you go to different kingdoms, they'll have a slightly different process because the laws are slightly different.
Which makes it really difficult in Viridian Outlands because it's not just a state thing; it's a country to country thing. Because part of us are in Canada.
Yeah, that could be really difficult. I have no idea about international NPL law.
So that's what makes it a little bit difficult too, and so I'm trying to figure out ways of how to make it so that it's fair that if someone wants to appeal something, they can appeal it and then have it go through the appeals process and still keep with the idea of that you should be able to disclose information to the appropriate parties and they cannot disclose it to other people. So it's like a confidentiality agreement, and we have to keep situations confidential because if someone didn't do something but they're being accused of it, we shouldn't be spreading around like a rumor if we don't know for sure that they actually did it. Otherwise, that can actually damage their reputation or even get them fired from jobs if it's serious enough.
Yeah, I mean, it could open up the organization to liable cases.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
extreme cases, anyways.
Which has happened before.
Yes, that's why the national standard of don't tell anyone what happened, just ban them.
Which has its own host of other problems that have come along with that because I've seen people get banned who don't even know why they got banned.
Yeah, that's not appropriate.
And people just aren't telling people things. And then part of the appeals process in some kingdoms are like, well, you can take it to the populace to vote, but if the populace doesn't know the situation at hand, how can they properly vote? Now they're just saying, hey, is this guy a jerk or is this guy not a jerk? I'm gonna vote based on if he's a jerk or not a jerk now.
Yeah.
And rather than the guy could have done something horrendous, but if he had enough friends, then they could just be like, oh yeah, we're going to overturn that. We're not sure why he got banned, but we're just going to overturn that anyway.
Yeah.
And that's problematic.
It is. So what impact has the Amtgard community had on you outside of Amtgard?
So I am on the leadership path, and it really taught me how to be a proper leader, to corral people, essentially. And it's also really taught me in a lot of ways how to regulate my own emotions, and because I used to be an angry kid that had anger problems I brought to the field sometimes, and Amtgard has really allowed me to temper that by the social paradigm of what we're all about, you know what I mean? So like I go out to the field, I fight, I no longer have an anger issue in part because of Amtgard.
Nice.
It helped me in that regard, and it also helped me learn how to socialize better, and to be part of an organization in a group, and be a productive member of that group.
Can you think of any moment in your experience with the Amtgard community that has really strengthened your bond with it?
Pretty much when people come together and accomplish something greater, like running events, and people just jumping up to help you run those events, because it means that they care enough about Amtgard. Even if they don't like you personally, they're willing to jump up and be like, "Hey, I got your back. Let's do this." And that is what I love about the game, is that even if personalities conflict, they'll have your back.
So you've been a contributing member to the community for quite a while now, through leadership and stuff, and volunteering at events and stuff like a lot of people do. How do you view how those contributions that you've made have impacted the community?
So I have been in leadership a lot, and since I'm from Viridian Outlands, I'll go into a little bit of the history behind Viridian Outlands. We used to be known as the Principality of Stormhaven, and at that moment we had multiple lands under us, but people were confusing the Principality of Stormhaven with the Land of Stormhaven, two different things.
Yeah.
The Principality of Stormhaven, it was the overall arcing group that expanded Canada up to Western Winds, all the way down to Stormhaven. And in Stormhaven, we were used to running everything because we used to be the Grand Duchy, and then we opened it up to Principality so anyone can run. But because of the history of that, no one except people in Stormhaven ran for office at all. So I became Prince, and I like looking at the psychology of people and trying to influence directions based on understanding their psychology and changing around and manipulating the way things are run so that I can get the desired results. It's one of the things that I have specialized in terms of like my job in real life outside of this, and also within Amtgard. So I changed the name from Principality of Stormhaven to Viridian Outlands, because it was all psychological that people thought that they couldn't run for office because it was Stormhaven. Lo and behold, people started running for office outside of Stormhaven. And since people started running for office, we ended up growing really rapidly. And then we became a kingdom shortly after that. Within, I think, 5 years, we ended up becoming a kingdom, where we were struggling to become a kingdom since like 2002.
Yeah.
Where we were trying since 2002 to become a kingdom. So the changes that we had to make in order to become a kingdom, I assisted with that and changed the name to Viridian Outlands to promote Canadians to run for office, which ultimately pushed us over the line.
Long lot of work.
Same here.
We're going to talk about the future here a little bit. So in the future, what challenges do you see Amtgard facing, and how do you think that they can overcome those challenges?
Some of the challenges that I think that Amtgard is facing have been things I've already discussed, where we have gone to from one extreme to the other extreme, where we're being really trigger happy with a lot of the bans, and we are banning people permanently from the game, where I don't think that a perm ban is necessary. In my opinion, other people might not share this opinion, but in my opinion, we should never permaban a player unless that player poses an actual danger to the community, either like physically or like other situations that they just pose a danger to us. Because at the end of the day, we need to allow room for growth. And if there are situations where someone is just being obnoxious, or if someone like drinks too much and like gets in a fight or something like that, that behavior can be changed over time if they grow and learn from it. And we should be able to give them the opportunity to grow and learn from it. So a 6-month ban and from Amtgard and a 1 year ban from alcohol at events might be warranted, right? Maybe even a 2-year ban from alcohol from events might be warranted. But to just outright permaban someone for making a stupid mistake, if he doesn't pose an active danger to the community and he's willing to grow, then that doesn't really do Amtgard any good, in my opinion. It does a disservice to Amtgard, and it does a disservice to the person that we just banned. We need to allow people a chance to grow, a chance to change, and a chance to learn from their mistakes. And if we keep on bringing up the same mistakes that they made like 10 years, 20 years ago, like I've made plenty of mistakes myself. And I always get a little bit annoyed at people bringing up things that happened 20 years ago because I'm like, dude, I was a teenager like 23 years ago. Why are you bringing this stuff up?
Yeah.
Let me grow. I'm 39 now. So like, don't you think I've changed from when I was a teenager?
Yeah, growth is an important aspect of life in general.
And I feel like in some cases we're being too heavy-handed with the bans, where we should be a little bit more, hey, let's go ahead and give you a 6 month, and then we'll see from there, see if you can really learn your lesson. Because I've seen some permabans go out that I'm just like, are they like, did they touch someone inappropriately? Did they like stab someone, or are they in actual danger? If no, and all they did was become a little bit belligerent during a night of drinking, come on, right? But in a lot of cases, because we can't really talk about what they actually did, it gets spread around like wildfire, right? By just random people. Sometimes we don't even know if what we're being told is true. So that's what also makes it kind of difficult, because now we're in a situation where we don't know if what they did is actually what's being told, and that's why they're permanent or not. And so it's a struggle. And I think that Amtgards really need to learn and have some growing pains from the decisions that have been made to really step in and figure out what the best course of action is.
How do you see the community evolving, and are there any traditions that go along with that you'd like to see continue or change?
So there is a tradition that when someone gets knighted, there's a buffet line.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like it, so a lot of the old guard like it, a lot of people don't like it. It's very contentious.
And to be clear for people that don't know, a buffet line is kind of like the last blow. So like you'll get punched and then move on by the knights. So that's why it's contentious, because it's a physical consensual assault. I don't know how you call that, but
Yeah. I think
so that's why it's contentious.
There have been, from what I've been told, there have been people that aren't part of that situation that view anything happening to someone else, and they're a third party, anything happening to someone else as a COC, and they want to report it as a COC and stuff like that, and they're hyper vigilant. So in regards to buffet lines, someone informed me this weekend that they're worried that someone filed COC over like a buffet line or something like that, and that kind of concerns me as well. Simply because whether or not you like buffet lines, it should be up to the person that's getting buffeted whether or not it's okay.
Which hasn't always been the case in the past.
Which hasn't always been the case, but as long as they consent, saying, "Hey, I consent to this," or something like that, then that should be the end of it. As long as like consent is paramount for the person that's getting buffeted. I don't like the idea that third parties are coming in and being like, well, this person got buffeted and I don't personally like that, but it's not happening to you. It's a situation that they want to put themselves in, not you. And so that's the traditions I personally want to stay. However, I want to have an asterisk, a little note saying, as long as that person consents to it and wants it done. Because some people are old guard like that, where they want that type of tradition. And I want things to stay as long in that way, as long as those individuals want to continue those traditions. But I also want to make it clear that it's okay to not want a buffet line. Completely okay.
Right. So yeah, that was the interview. I really appreciate Knox being here and giving us his insight on the community of Amtgard. And I appreciate all of you for tuning in. And I'll catch you next time.
See ya.